It is amazing what he saw with one eye. And he seems to get a sort of sixth sense as well as to what is going on beneath the surface. Because there were plenty of people around who had far better eyesight than he did, who would say, well, I don't see what you're pointing at, Skues, old chap, you know. But he sort of seemed to know mostly what was going on. Mind you, these are the surface, subsurface, near the surface fish we're talking about. But he could see them actually a surprising distance down.
Well, that's a very familiar picture, is it not? You all know that one. It's used in all the books and all the journals. And the reason is quite a simple one. There are not very many pictures of Skues in existence. And the reason for that is a rather odd one. Skues had absolute camera phobia. He really didn't like being photographed at all.
It's very nice when you begin a book. The research that you do is exciting. And you're finding new things. You're finding secrets that nobody else knows. That's a great moment. In my trade as a historian, whenever I've had some great project on, I've been off to the Public Record Office, or the National Archives, as they call it now, Kew, or the manuscript room of the British Museum in those days. It's now the British Library. This is the cutting edge of history. You know, if you're in touch with it. And the heart starts to beat slightly faster, you know, maybe the nostrils dilate, I don't know. But it is quite a moment, you know. And all that is pure delight.
This changed everything, this sort of thing. It changed his life. This is a late example, but this is a ticket to fish at Abbots Barton. And you see here it's Irwin E.B. Cox, his patron. We owe a lot to Irwin Cox. He made available to Skues this wonderful sort of water laboratory where for 56 years he fished and worked out the whole nymph thing for us all.
It was pure chance that he fell into that fishing just because his firm in London, his legal firm, acted for the man who had AB. And so he could easily have gone to some other place where the whole conditions are quite different. But in particular, the long stretch down to Winchester of the main river, which moves so slowly, where surface tension is more of a problem, you have creatures coming up from the bottom and they find it rather difficult to get through to the outer world. And that means that it's wonderful for the just subsurface nymph. That doesn't mean that's all that Skues did. One of the things I've tried to establish in my book, that this idea, which is received by a lot of people nowadays, that Skues nymphs were right up near the surface, is I'm afraid not true. If you read what Skues printed, and he was being careful then, because he knew purists were breathing down his neck, he indicates that that's what he's doing. If you read his letters, where he is a little bit more honest, you can see that he puts the nymph anywhere he likes. If the fish are feeding deep, the nymph goes deep. This means, in fact, that this, as I say, commonly received idea that Skues only did sort of 2/3 of the nymph job, and it was left to Frank Sawyer to come along and complete it with his deep-sinking nymphs of the pheasant-tail variety. That, I'm afraid, is not true.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is Skues' great enemy. Sir Joseph Ball, knighted by the Conservative government. And by the time it comes to the great debate, on the 13th of February 1938, in the Fly Fishers Club, Ball is actually concerned with, you would think, rather more important matters than whether the sunk fly is a good idea or not. That's the last picture. That was taken by a man called George Monkhouse, who was a great photographer. He actually was a managing director of Kodak. And that again is a sneak picture, but you can get very close to Skues when he's 90, nearly 90. He can't hear and he can't see. I think he would have been jolly cross if he'd known about that. He's now living in Beckenham, in South London. His brother went down and said, I'm going to get you out of here, this awful place down in Wilton. Let's take you back to London where we can keep an eye on you. And they lived round the corner, his brother and the family. The brother was 17 years younger, you see. Said, I think we're going to look after you. And for the last year of his life, he was comparatively comfortable, which is a nice thought. They fixed him up with a house and an Irish cook and a maid that he noticed was quite pretty. He always had an eye for the ladies, even right at the end of his life when he could hardly see.
Thank you so much.